Karoline Leavitt had never imagined that one of the hardest battles of her life would begin in a courtroom. The young, passionate lawyer had always been prepared for the usual challenges: tough cases, aggressive opposing counsel, and long hours poring over legal briefs. But the trial that would shape her destiny was about to take an unexpected turn. It all started when she walked into the courtroom wearing a simple, delicate cross pendant. To Karoline, it was a quiet statement of her faith, an unspoken promise to herself to carry her values into everything she did. However, to Judge Harold Price, it was something far more controversial. Karoline had seen Judge Price before. He was an experienced jurist, known for his stern demeanor and strict interpretation of the law. She had never anticipated that her small act of personal expression would provoke such a response. "Ms. Leavitt," Judge Price's voice rang out as she took her seat, "I must ask you to remove that necklace. This courtroom is a place for neutrality, and that cross is a clear violation of the decorum we expect here." Karoline blinked, momentarily stunned. The cross, something so innocuous to her, had become the subject of contention. "Your Honor, with all due respect, I don't believe my necklace is interfering with the proceedings. It's simply a personal choice. I'm here to represent my client to the best of my ability," Karoline said, trying to keep her voice calm. Judge Price's face hardened. "I'm aware of your intentions, Ms. Leavitt, but you must understand that this courtroom is a secular space. Your display of religious symbolism is inappropriate." The tension in the room thickened. Karoline felt every eye in the courtroom turn toward her, waiting for her response. The judge wasn't going to back down. In a swift motion, Judge Price handed her a fine, $500 for disrespecting the court's decorum. Karoline's heart raced. A fine for wearing a cross. It seemed absurd. But she knew she couldn't let this moment pass quietly. With a steady voice, she responded, "I will pay the fine, Your Honor, but I will not remove my necklace." Karoline walked out of the courtroom that day with a mixture of frustration and disbelief. She couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was at play. She had faced many obstacles in her career, but this felt like an attack on her beliefs, on her identity. Her phone buzzed incessantly as messages from friends and colleagues flooded in. Everyone had heard about the fine, and the public's reaction was swift. Some were supportive of Karoline's right to wear the cross, while others, like the judge, argued that a courtroom should be a neutral space. It was the kind of situation that could ruin a career. But Karoline had always been one to face adversity head-on. The following week, she returned to court, her cross pendant still hanging around her neck, a quiet but firm rebellion. But this time, things took an unexpected turn. The opposing counsel in her case, an experienced attorney named Mr. Thompson, had caught wind of the controversy and used it to his advantage. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are not here to discuss personal beliefs," Mr. Thompson began, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. "But it's hard to ignore a lawyer who brings personal religious symbols into a place where justice should be blind. Is she here to serve the law, or is she here to promote her personal agenda?" The courtroom murmured. Karoline could feel the eyes of the jury on her, weighing her every move. She had to respond, but how? Karoline stood, her heart pounding in her chest. She locked eyes with the judge, who sat stoically at the bench, and then turned to face the jury. Her voice was calm but fierce. "Mr. Thompson, I'm not here to push an agenda. I'm here to do my job, to represent my client with integrity and respect. My necklace, just like my faith, is a personal part of who I am. But it does not affect my ability to do the work I was called to do. If we are to truly uphold the ideals of justice, we must be able to accept people for who they are, beliefs and all." The courtroom fell silent. Karoline's words seemed to hang in the air, shifting the atmosphere in the room. Even Judge Price, despite his earlier disapproval, couldn't help but shift in his seat. Days passed, and the controversy around Karoline's fine continued to swirl. But soon, something remarkable began to happen. People began to take notice, not just of the cross around her neck, but of Karoline herself. Her unwavering stance, her refusal to back down, spoke volumes. Soon, Karoline found herself in the midst of an unexpected legal battle, a battle that would test her skills in ways she had never imagined. A new case had emerged in her firm, one that involved a large tech corporation accused of illegally collecting data from millions of users without their consent. Karoline had taken on high-profile cases before, but this was different. The stakes were higher, and the legal team opposing her was ruthless. The case was complicated, but Karoline saw something the others didn't. She could sense the patterns of the law and how they interwove with the company's tactics. While her colleagues and the opposing counsel got lost in the minutiae, Karoline saw the bigger picture. As the case progressed, Karoline began to use her insights in ways no one expected. She drew from case law, historical precedents, and her deep understanding of both tech regulations and human rights. With each day, her reputation as a brilliant legal mind grew. It wasn't long before the public began to recognize Karoline not just for her courage in wearing her faith, but for her sharp legal acumen. The press began to highlight her role in the case, calling her a legal genius and a rising star in the world of civil rights law. One day, after a particularly tense courtroom session, Karoline sat with her client, a whistleblower who had risked everything to expose the company's unethical practices. They were moments away from winning the case. The relief on her client's face made everything worth it. "You really did it, Karoline," the whistleblower said, shaking her hand. Karoline smiled, her eyes flicking toward her cross pendant. "We did it. The truth is stronger than anything they could throw at us." And at that moment, Karoline realized something: her faith, her personal beliefs, and her legal genius were not separate things. They were the very forces that drove her, that made her unshakable in the face of adversity. The cross around her neck wasn't a burden, it was a reminder of her purpose. The victory in the tech case was just the beginning. Karoline's legal career skyrocketed from that point on, but she never lost sight of the reason she became a lawyer: to fight for what was right, to protect the vulnerable, and to bring justice to those who needed it most. Months later, Karoline was invited to give a TED Talk on the intersection of faith, law, and personal integrity. As she stood on the stage, facing an audience of thousands, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. "I wore this cross, not to make a statement," she said, her voice clear and steady, "but because it's a part of who I am. And as we move forward in life, we must never forget that our beliefs, whether spiritual or moral, are what guide us. They define who we are. They give us strength when we face the toughest battles." The crowd erupted in applause. Karoline knew her journey had just begun. With her faith, her intellect, and her unwavering sense of justice, she was ready to fight for those who needed her most. And this time, she wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for a better world. End.